day, Meticulous Moments audience. Thank you so much for joining us for yet another exhilarating interview here at the Meticulous Moments podcast, where we facilitate community upliftment through leadership development. And today we have the amazing Misael Diaz with us. How are you, Misael?
I am doing great. I'm very, very happy to be here with you today, Juanita. Thank you for having me.
It's such a pleasure. Thank you so much for making the time to spend with me and the audience. And you have such a diverse background, and there's no one better to tell the audience than yourself. So give us a little bit of background on yourself. We would love to learn more.
Absolutely. So in a nutshell, I'm originally from the Dominican Republic. I come from a family of pastors. So my parents were pastors. I grew up in a faith-based environment. Fast forward, I went through what I call probably one of the best stages of my life, based on my own opinion. I spent some time at a golf course where I learned a lot of different things and met many beautiful people. Then fast forward, moved to the US in 2003, went to school here, had an opportunity to be part of the private sector for some time. And in 2016, then I became a full-time business owner, which is what I do right now.
Fantastic, fantastic. Misael, we met through the Connected Leaders Academy, Jose Escobar. And, you mentioned something about the golf course, and I always like to bring fun into the Meticulous Moments audience, their experience as well, because that's part of the Meticulous Moments culture. And I remember that you shared a story about your days at the golf course, and someone that had used a certain phrase, and then you used that phrase as well. I think that would be delightful if you share that with the audience. That was, I laughed so much, and it made such an impression on me.
Thank you. I'm glad you find that you were able to see the humor in it, and I'm glad that I survived to tell the story. Right? So yeah, it certainly is part of, and I tell the story just, it's definitely, in my opinion, is hilarious, right?
Yeah.
But I also, the reason or the point that I try to make with the story is that we should always try. We should always go for it. We should always, be an active learner at all times. So while I was a caddy at a golf course at a very young age, I would say 14, 15, until I was maybe 18, 19 years of age. So I spent a few years at a golf course, a very prominent golf course. A lot of wealthy people visit there, still visit in the Dominican Republic. And I remember this particular time I was caddying for a group of young men from Canada. I cannot recall exactly their ages, but they probably were late 20s, early 30s back then, right? And they were having fun. They were on vacation. They was just having fun. And typically they were joking among themselves. But this particular joke that they were doing, I've never heard of, right? So that every time something wrong happened, the joke was, you need a shot of Cialis, right? You need Cialis. You need Cialis. That was the joke. The joke is, you need a shot of Cialis. In case, to you watching us now or listening to us here, Cialis is basically a competition of Viagra. It has the same chemical, and it's the same medicine. Is an ED medication for male. And these guys they were having fun. They were joking among themselves. I need a shot of Cialis. You need Cialis. They would, take their shirt off. They would start limping, and everything they said was Cialis. So for 4 days, I was listening to that. I heard that term, Cialis, Cialis, Cialis. And every time it came up, laughter erupted. So in my mind, I said, oh, this has got to be something really, really funny. So I remember that. Literally a week later, I was caddying for my very good friend, Patricia Mapes. At the time, she was, 63, 64 years of age, right? So she's in her 60s at the time. And she's a regular player that I know really, really well. So at the 14th hole, I remember that at the 14th tee, Patricia completely misses the ball, goes into the water, and the first thing out of my lips is, "You need a shot of Cialis," right? So here I am trying to learn English, right? I'm trying to learn English. I'm going for it, and I don't know what I'm saying, but in essence, I am recommending Viagra to a 64-year-old lady, right? So I'm glad that I'm alive to tell the story.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned that to the audience. You know, we all have had situations like that, and that's how we grow and that's how we learn. And I think a very important part of being successful is to not just always take ourselves too seriously, because then when we make a mistake, we kind of internalize that mistake and we become one with the mistake. And at the end of the day, we have to see the situation for what it is. So I enjoyed it when you shared that during your presentation, because it just helps the other entrepreneurs out there who are risk takers like us to know that if they fail at something or if they make a mistake, it's okay. Tomorrow we start over, lesson learned. You know, next time we take another approach. And that's very interesting, especially with entrepreneurs or go-getters, but they're also very passionate people. And in the years that I was pastoring churches, I really felt that people internalize problems instead of seeing what the problem really is. So I always encourage, when I empower them, to really get perspective. I think when we get perspective, it helps us for a clear view, so that when we come to those crossroads in life, when we have to make those difficult decisions, we have a better view. Now, we talked a little bit about crossroads when we had our virtual coffee. Tell us about a time in your life where you had a crossroad. You were standing, there, and you could make one of two choices. What was the situation and what choice did you make?
Sure. As you know by now, I've been in several, I think we all go through many crossroads in our lives, and it goes in stages depending of your current condition and circumstances, family situation, age, environment, friends, even your faith. So we all encounter different crossroads, but this particular one that I would like to share, it's one that at the moment I did not know I was going to be as proud as I am today. Because I tell you this, Juanita, I've told the story to my son. He's 13 years of age, and I don't even want to imagine what would it be like if I made a different decision back then. So this is October 2016, and specifically I know the date, because I will never forget that moment. Prior to October 2016, I was still a traditional employee, private sector. I was working for a company headquarters in Maidenhead, UK. So I used to travel to the UK quite a lot. But I was doing their businesses here in the United States. And between 2015 and 2016, the company got restructured, and the person that I reported to changed twice in a year. So there was a lot of changes during that time. And in 2016, October 28th, 2016, I was offered, quote unquote, an opportunity that would produce hundreds of thousands of dollars for me, if I violated my values and my principles. In other words, I was asked to steal. I had to approve something that I knew that I would be aware that it was not right, but I had the approving power of that, and I was asked to approve it in exchange for what would have produced hundreds of thousands of dollars for me. At least that was the promise. Well, that was October 28, 2016. In October 29, 2016, I was no longer employed of that company. Why? Because in essence, what I told this person was, hey, look, if I do what you're asking me to do, number one, you will own me. You will own me, because I will have to do whatever you ask me to do just so I can keep this cover. So from that moment on, I belong to you, right? That's in essence, I said that, but it literally, I said this: you did not ask me to approve those reports. You asked me to quit the company. That's what you just asked me. You asked me to resign, because that's something I'm not willing or able to do, ever, period. So again, October 28th, I was there having the conversation. October 29th, I was no longer part of the company. And at the time, I had no plan whatsoever. I did not know what I was going to do. I was not looking for another position. I was not in a transitioning situation. I did not know what was going to be my plan B, anything. It's just that, I'm not willing to negotiate my principles and my values at all. Even if tomorrow brings me hardship, today, I'm not willing to do that. And looking back now and seeing what I am today, I'm telling you, it is probably, if not the best, one of the best decisions I've made in my life.
Absolutely. I agree with you. Absolutely. And I do believe, from my personal perspective, that your faith played a very big role in that decision. And I do
Absolutely.
believe that
Yes.
our faith carries us through. And I also do believe that
Yes.
we will inevitably, because of the reach of Meticulous Moments, have someone in the audience that maybe in the future or maybe currently face a situation that's similar. What would you tell them if they stood in front of you right now? What would you say?
Well, there's several things I will say, and I would start with what I told this person. Number one, when you violate your principles and your values to do something similar to what I was presented with, remember, let me just say it to you plainly. You are selling yourself to that person, or to those people, or to that environment, or to that company. The moment you make that decision, you are a puppet, because you are easy target for blackmail. You are easy target to be manipulated. So there is no reward. There is no monetary value of it. There's nothing you can gain from making a decision like the one I was presented with, that you will be comfortable for the rest of your life, I would say. So that's number one. Number two, I don't know you, but I would not be able to sleep. That would know me taking that action knowingly, aware. I would not be able. Why? Because my parents from childhood instilling me to respect other people's property, to be honest, to live with integrity. And if I made that decision, which I didn't, and gladly I didn't, but if I made that decision, I would not be able to look at my mother in her eyes. I would not be able to look at my father in his eyes. And more importantly, now I have a 13-year-old son. I would not be able to preach integrity with integrity to my son. I hope that makes sense, right? I would not be able to preach integrity with integrity to my kids. Why? Because I wouldn't have the character to say that. I'm asking him to do something I had already done. So to you listening to me, if you are in that crossroad, if you are in that particular situation, I will tell you, and can I quote the Bible here? Is that okay?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So the psalmist David said, it is better bread with water with peace than abundance or feasts with anxiety. Right? Just think about that. I'd rather eat bread and water, just that, and sleep with peace, and not have a feast and be anxious of who's going to knock on my door at any time, who's going to call me, who's looking at me, who's watching for me, am I being chased or anything like that? What happens to my reputation, right? So I'd rather eat the bread and water. That's what I would say to that person listening to me right now.
Impeccable advice, and I agree with you completely. And I love that you quoted the Psalms and spoke about, David, who eventually became king. And that's why the Psalms also say that David was a man after God's own heart. And I think sometimes we lose perspective when we get too busy in life, when we have all these things going on, all these moving parts, and there's pressure, and there's a time limit to everything, and we have to roll, and everything's developing so quickly. Let us, as Misael said, not lose sight of our morals and our values. And if we get some opposition, let us remember that God is for us, He's not against us. I think that's also a phrase that has really carried me through my life, because I actually not only faced controversy in business, in corporate world, but I also faced controversy in the church. And we have to remember at the end of the day, we are all just people. And God, He's the one that keeps us going. And we have to stay in that place where we stay in prayer and stick to our morals and our values. So thank you so much for explaining that. I appreciate it. My dog seconded my answer to that, because he's as passionate about it as I am. No, this is very organic. Yeah, I wanted to ask you, we talked about the fact that you are a John Maxwell Certified Leadership Coach as well. And that is an amazing accreditation to have. And I would love for us, because I'm sure, I don't know if everyone in the audience is familiar with what John Maxwell coaching entails. So give us an overview, because, I've spoken to Dr. Rob McClelland. He worked very closely with John Maxwell. I know Dr. Rob, shout out to him. He's amazing. And I know many John Maxwell coaches. But for someone in the audience that's not acquainted with the system, that's maybe thinking of going into coaching, tell them a little bit more about how that works and, just the foundational aspects of what is done.
Sure, absolutely. And I'll tell you, I had the privilege and pleasure and opportunity to work very up close with John. I actually have been able to share stage with him in more than one occasion. So I've because well, and that's part of it. So the John Maxwell team, basically now called Maxwell Leadership, it's a certification that looks after coaching, speaking, and training. It's a triple certification based on the John Maxwell philosophies, based on the John Maxwell values. And these are taught through his books. As we know, John, in case anybody in the audience is not familiar with John, but John is an American author. He's been in the industry for 50 plus years, 54 years. Up until now, he's written, I believe it's 109 or 110 books, of which he has, I believe, 17 or 18 are bestsellers. And so he's the reference when it comes to leadership. He's, as we call it, the guru, right? The godfather of leadership. And through the John Maxwell certification, what happens is that you become licensed to teach John Maxwell's values, John Maxwell principles, John Maxwell philosophy. You'll go through a training that covers, like I said, leadership, which is the foundation of the whole program. Also, you work on your speaking skills, because it's important for you to be able to communicate what you're learning. And also you go through a training which helps you deliver that information that you are learning at the time. And as a John Maxwell certified coach, what you're doing is that you are able to, like I've done, you're able to open up your own business. You can become a full-time coach, a full-time speaker, a full-time trainer. And many of us have decided to take that route, right? In my case, what happened is in 2017, they launched the John Maxwell Team Espanol. And because Spanish is my first language, I became part of the staff. They invited me, they gave me an opportunity to become part of the executive directors of the company. of the business. And that gave me an opportunity not only to teach within the organization, but also to travel with them and do several things and promote the program throughout Latin America. So I had a different path through the John Maxwell or the Maxwell leadership experience, because in 2015, I was only a certified member. But by 2017, I was / part of the staff, and I had an opportunity to be very, I would say, behind the scenes, to have a look behind the scenes of how things work. But in general, the audience out there, one of the things that I like, Juanita, about the John Maxwell Team Program is that it gives you an opportunity for a lifetime learning. It grows with you, right? So once you join the program, you have an opportunity to have lifetime access to all of the curriculum, to all of the teachings, to all of the courses, to all of the material. And the beauty that I see in that is that at the beginning, many times we don't really comprehend what it is that we have in our hands. But as you mature in your business and as you grow as a coach, then you can go back and see it for what it is, which is a wealth of knowledge, which is a wealth of information, and that helps you to propel your business. So it's a coaching, speaking, training certification based on the John Maxwell values.
Absolutely. Thank you for explaining that to the audience, and for coaches out there that are trying to find their footing, trying to build that foundation. That's a wonderful option to venture to. And,
Yes.
you know, you had a different path, but also, I believe, an anointed path in the Maxwell Foundation, and you are changing lives, you know, as you're going around, as you're going from client to
Thank
client and working with the Spanish community. Tell us a little bit about leadership when you were younger. You grew up in a Christian home. Who were your role models to get you where you are today?
Wow. It depends on the age, right? So obviously at the beginning, in fact, even my teaching style, definitely, you know, my father had a big impact on me, huge influence, even to this day. And the reason I mentioned my teaching style is because I grew up around preaching. My dad was a pastor, so I was accustomed to see him speaking at all times. He even wrote several books. So as a child, I would say between ages of that I can remember 5, 6, 7, all the way up to maybe 12 years of age, that period of time, you know, although I was not thinking the way I think now, but I was aware that my dad was constantly speaking. He was constantly writing. He was constantly researching. He was constantly reading. And, you know, that sort of a preacher type style that sometimes I bring to my delivery comes from, you know, that background. Now, fast forward to my teenage years. Unfortunately, my parents divorced, and I did not spend my teenage years. I was not around my father, right? We do have today a very strong relationship. We're really good friends. We get along really well. But between 14 and, I don't know, 21, 22, 23, I did not have much contact with my dad. Yeah. During that time, I had other mentors, people that I met at the golf course, and that taught me. For example, one of them, a person that I keep in touch even to this day, his name is Mark Kissel. Mark was a businessman here in the United States. He's still alive, but he's retired now. He's 85. And he spent most of his time just traveling and playing golf. And Mark was a very successful businessman here in the United States. And he was the one who actually, during that time at a golf course, he taught me to understand my potential. He was the one who made me aware of my potential. And I will tell you this, Juanita, is that now looking back, I've gotten to understand that the best gift you and I can give anybody, or the best gift that you and I can receive, is awareness of potential.
Yes.
Right? is you and I making someone aware of their potential, or someone making us aware of our potential. And that's why I'm mentioning Mark, because Mark was the person who actually told me one day. He said, hey, you know that you're not just a caddy, right? You are much more than a caddy. You're not limited to what people can see. You're not limited to your name. So you are much more than that. I remember him telling me that. And at the time, I did not understand. But let me give you an example. You know the word, the name Messi, right? Like the soccer player, right?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to mention a name that everybody will know. So let's say Messi, right? Think about this, Juanita. It is very likely that the person who told Messi, you can play soccer, you could become a football player, it is likely that that person never play soccer, never play football. It is likely that that person never played football. Yeah. However, that person made Messi aware of his potential. See what I'm saying? Like, I don't need to do what you do in order for me to tell you that you have the potential to become who you could become, right? So the best gift, for example, John Maxwell, he says it in his book, The 14 Invaluable Laws of Growth. He says that a man by the name of Kurt Carmeyer in 1979 at a Holiday Inn hotel, when John Maxwell was a nobody, right? He wasn't the popular person that he is today, but that person at that hotel in 1979 told John, hey, did you know that growth is not accidental? Growth is intentional. And John said it says in that book that Kurt Carmeyer was the person that got me going in growth, in personal growth. Now, I don't think you ever read a book by Kurt Carmeyer. No. But I know I have read dozens of books by John Maxwell. You see, Kurt Carmeyer did not write the books, but he told John that he was capable of doing that. So in my opinion, the best gift that we could ever give somebody is to tell that person, you have the potential to become this. You have the potential to be, do, have more. So, obviously my dad had at an early age, big impact on me in my hunger of learning, teaching, and all of that. But then as an adult, I will say definitely Mark Kissel. I've been very close to John. John has been a great influence in my life. And also Paul Mainelli. Paul Mainelli was the person who co-founded the John Maxwell team. But this is more, in adulthood. As a child, I would say my dad and Mark Kissel.
Fantastic. I had an interview with also a certified Maxwell coach last year, Dennis Leroux. Shout out to Dennis Leroux. And Dennis and I had a wonderful discussion, and it ties with what you mentioned here. And that's why I absolutely love to network, because he's also in the CLA with us. He mentioned that John Maxwell he was a pastor, I believe, for a few years before moving into the coaching space. And, a few things sprung up while you were talking, and I absolutely 100% agree with what you said. It is our passion, I'd say. I wouldn't just say it's our job as coaches, audience. Misael and I would do coaching, but it's our passion to help people to see their potential. It's our passion to help them to identify their power and to identify the things that they maybe not even be aware of, as happened with John Maxwell. It is our passion to take the principles from what we've learned in our lives. We're not football players, we're not or tennis players or athletes, but what we do is we make the people that we coach, we make them aware of the principles that will also help them along their way, so that they can develop into the best person that they can be. And that's part of being developed and cultured and building that character in personal and professional development. Now, I also wanted to mention that I once sat with someone in an interview, and they said something profound. They said, don't trust a coach that doesn't have a coach. And I want to say to the audience, Misael and I, we coach people, but we also have coaches because there's always something
Absolutely.
new to learn. What's your view on that?
Well, here's the thing. I agree with you, but I would agree with the person that said, don't trust the coach that doesn't have a coach, right? It's because coaches need coaching. Coaches need coaching. You see, the fact that I'm a coach, that doesn't mean that I stop growing. The fact that I'm a coach, that doesn't mean that I don't have challenges and difficulties. The fact that I'm a coach, that doesn't mean that I don't have blind spots. The fact that I'm a coach, that doesn't mean that I don't make mistakes. And the fact that I'm a coach, that doesn't mean that I don't need nurturing and accountability, which is a big part of coaching, and specifically the accountability part, right? So I cannot ask you to do something that I'm not willing to do, right? I cannot ask you to do something that I am not willing to do. So if I want you to buy my program, invest in me, the best thing I can do is to be a model and be investing in someone else, right? To be invested in it, right? It's coming back to me in mentoring and coaching, but you get the idea. I cannot ask you to do something that I'm not willing to do or that I am not doing myself. So that's my opinion. Also, how could I, as a coach, bring you fresh perspective, different ideas, right? Elevate your thinking if I am not getting that from someone else, right? How could I do that? It's impossible, right? In fact, I go, again, I'm a student of the laws of growth. And in the laws of growth, law number 13, which is the law of modeling, right? That law says that you are not going to grow to your maximum potential if the only person you're learning from is yourself. If you're only learning from yourself, your growth is limited. So it is a food chain, right? It's a food chain. I have a coach, I mentor somebody, that person will mentor somebody else, and it just go on and on and on and on. So agree with the person that tells you run. I would say run from the coach that doesn't have a coach. I would say that. Run away. Yes. And run away from that person.
Most definitely, because, then they are not teachable. And you cannot grow, like you've said, if you're not teachable. You'll not grow in any capacity. I've actually, I've in my years that I studied at university, I studied up to master's level. And I was with the pastoral teams as well. And I also taught at universities. I taught the student committees. And I helped them to, reach their goals. And that's why I love leadership. I absolutely love to work with leadership. And I actually met individuals that had been in the tertiary field for so long, and that had really started to speak another language, so much so they were so involved in their studies and not with people, that they would stand in a circle and have a conversation, but they wouldn't be able to converse with anybody that they met. They could only speak with people that were on that theological level. And that's where I kind of found my place with the coaching in those years, because I was kind of the gel to bring that bridge between the pastors that were still up and coming and the highly taught professors. And I think what we should do is we should always stay teachable, but we should always be willing to learn from different people, different backgrounds, different cultures, different levels of study, because we need to amalgamate everything. And that's what I do on a daily basis. I amalgamate everything I've learned from these different spheres. I bring it together, and then I formulate something fresh. We should never get to a place where we can't, work in a setting or communicate, like you put focus on communication earlier, where we can't communicate with all people from all places, because that's when we lose opportunities to impact. I need to be able as a coach, and I'm sure you are, to communicate on someone's level. If they're still up and coming and they have a certain set of principles or leadership linguistics, what I call it, I need to be able to work with them and communicate clearly. But if they are, professors, or if they've studied past that even, I need to be able also to communicate with them on that level. But I should never overemphasize the one person that I'm coaching because they are further ahead in life than I do the other person. We should always, kind of bring a middle ground. And, it was a fertile field for me, I'd say, Misael, because that taught me so much. We learn from everybody. There's nobody that I can't learn from.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, I learned lessons from the youth that I pastored. I learned lessons from my young adults group. And so it went on. Different people, different age groups, different fields. What's your opinion on being able to communicate with everyone on their level?
Well, thank you. And there was a lot there. What I would say is this, what I've learned, Juanita, is that communication is not what I say. Communication is what happens after I say what I say. Okay, so that's what I will say. Communication does not happen when I'm speaking, right? There's so many different ways for us to communicate, right? I know, I'm aware of this, and I had to look at myself in videos so I can learn how to use it at the appropriate time. But I speak a lot with my body, my face, my eyes, my hands, right? My posture, my complexity. Like I use all of that to communicate, right? So communication is not what we're saying. Communication is what's happening after we said what we said, right? What's happening. So and important is that communication is not about me.
Yes.
Communication is not about me. Communication is about others. It's about the other person. So the best communicators, the best leaders, which leaders are communicators, they don't communicate at their level. They communicate at the level of the people that they're trying to influence or they're trying to connect with. Let me give you an example. My wife and I, we have a 13-year-old son and we have a 9-year-old daughter, right? So two kids, 5 years apart, right? 4 years apart. Now, the time when I'm speaking to my son, I speak at a level. When I'm speaking to my daughter, I'm speaking at a different level. I cannot speak to my son the way I speak to a corporation, but I cannot speak to my daughter the same way I'm speaking to my son, right? So it's different. And the time when they love the most, when my daughter loves the most, it's when I go down on the floor and play with her, and then I put myself at her level, right? So as a leader, we don't tell people to come to us. We go to the people and take them where they should go or where we want to take them. So communication is extremely important. One more thing. I've studied a lot about storytelling because storytelling is a big part of public speaking. It's very important. I learned this from one of my public speaking mentors, and she said, don't tell a story. Don't ever tell a story. And I was like, that's contradicting what I've learned before because I've been asked to tell a story. She said, no, don't tell a story. Take them to the story.
Oh, beautiful.
It's different.
Yeah.
Why? Because if I told you a man came to my door, okay, what if I told you a Hispanic man wearing a blue shirt?
Yeah.
It was 9 o'clock in the evening or in the morning. It was raining. He was soaked in wet, right? Like just, and then I begin to give you this vivid details. I'm telling you a man came to the door, but I'm giving you the whole scenario. Now I'm taking your mind there. Now I'm taking you to the story. So communication is not what you say. Communication is what happens after you say what you said. That's what I would say. Look, it does not matter how I sound or what I say if at the end you don't understand it, right? I believe it was Nelson Mandela. I believe it was Nelson Mandela that said, tell a man something they know, and you will get their attention. Tell a man something they understand, and they will follow you. Right? Tell a man something they know, and they will give you attention. But if they understand it, they will follow you.
I love that. I love that. Great quote, because I'm from South Africa. So very fitting. I enjoy that. Very, very good. That just drove the point home. I've traveled the world. I've been to Europe. I've been to the States. There's many more places that I'll visit this year. And I'm always at public speaking events. I speak myself, or I sit on the business panel, or I'm there to see the speaker competitions that people engage in. And I've seen the two different scenarios that you have illustrated here. I've seen people just, telling a story. But I've also seen people commanding a stage where they take that energy and they bring that story to life. And it's almost as if you are there and you're living it, because it's playing out in your mind. So I agree with you completely. And that's what I also do, when I go, I hold that energy, I raise that energy of the room, and I command that room, I command that stage, because we owe it to the people out there to give our best. We owe it to the people out there to do everything we can do in our power to excel them and to, help them to succeed. So, we talk about gratitude here at Meticulous, and there's no right or wrong answer. But if we think about gratitude and the energy that we put out there when we experience that gratitude, when we thank God for everything He does for us, where He's placed us, what He's busy with us within our lives, what's to come. Tell us a little bit about what role gratitude has played, the expression of gratitude has played in your life as a leader.
Very important. I think that, the way I put it, it's because I've been extremely blessed with friends, family, mentors, many opportunities. Right. And gratitude is a position of our heart. That's my opinion. Right. But also gratitude is, for me, recognizing the giver. Right. There is no gift without a giver. Right. So in order for me to be grateful, to experience gratitude, I must recognize you, Juanita. Right. I must recognize the opportunity that you're giving me today. I must recognize the opportunity that the audience is giving us today to stop in their tracks, or, to listen to us, to turn on the podcast in their vehicle, or at the gym while they're working out. So gratitude is a big part, because I believe these. I wholeheartedly believe these. And in fact, I would tell the people listening to us, I would say, you may want to write these down, because abundance will flow into your life when gratitude flows out of your heart. Okay. Abundance will flow into your life when gratitude flows out of your heart. Right. And that, in every stage of my life, we could go on and on. Like if we get into my story, my personal story, then we'll need like 24 hours in order for us to do this. But it's because I've been given many opportunities at several different stages of my life. And every single time when I look back, what I realize is that God blessed me with a particular person at that particular time. So for me, gratitude is it's not only, I would say, it's a decision. I made the decision to be grateful, to appreciate, but also is I gotta be aware that it was not, whatever it is, whether it is emotions, thoughts, ideas, material things, financial opportunity, it never comes from me. It always comes from somebody else. Everything I've experienced in my life, everything I've received in my life, always came through someone else.
Yeah.
And when I recognize that, I become grateful for that particular person, for that particular moment, for that particular idea to God. So abundance will flow into your life when gratitude flows out of your heart. It's a position of our heart, I would say.
Position of heart. I agree completely. And grateful people are just amazing. And, just to see and feeling that gratitude in our hearts as well, that's one of the best feelings ever. I mean, we should start with being grateful every single day. We should really look at the things around us and the beautiful people that are sent on our path and experience the gratitude that you've just
Absolutely.
explained to us. And we are grateful that you joined us for this session. And we're down to our last. I want to ask you for words of words of wisdom. What words of wisdom do you want to leave the audience with so that they can think about it, rework it, apply it in some way in their lives?
Well, we've spoken about, gratitude. We've spoken about crossroads in our lives. We've spoken about leadership. We've spoken about a little bit about potential. And I would end with that. What I will tell you listening to us out there, I will tell you one of the things that when I realized that literally, it changed my life. And what I will tell you is that you are not just your name. You are not the clothes that you're wearing right now. Yeah. You are not the makeup that you have or don't have. You're not the hair that you have or may not have. You are not what you look like. You are much more than that. You are much more than what I can see. Yeah. And you are much more than what you have been told. And I will tell you this. I will tell you, your past is not your destiny. Where you come from does not determine where you can go tomorrow. Right? I will tell you that. Believe in your potential. Believe in God. Believe in yourself. You are capable of being, doing, and having so much more than what you are done so far. That's my advice to you. Believe in yourself, believe in your dreams, believe in God.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Misael. We are all exceptionally edified through this session and all the beautiful information that you've shared from the Meticulous Moments audience and myself. Thank you for joining us. And make sure to like, follow, and subscribe, to Misael as well. We're going to make his social media handles available. And thank you, Misael. Continued blessings to you, and God bless you and your family. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're the #1 fastest growing community and tribe of some of the highest level entrepreneurs all around the country and around the world. We're in 36 states across the U.S., in 11 international countries, and over 240 plus members, growing every single day. And I'm honored, excited, and I'm glad to say that I'm proud to be the official sponsor of the Meticulous Moments podcast with Juanita Kapp. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm excited for this journey.
Thought-Provoking Change and Jonathan Ellis, the champion maker, are proud sponsors of Meticulous Moments and Juanita Kapp. Head on over now to thoughtprovokingchange.com/opportunity and join us today, where alongside myself, Jonathan Ellis, the champion maker, and our team of highly qualified, incredible individuals will help you pull out the champion within yourself. We're here to bring out the champion that we know lives inside of you, that you may be challenged to manifest and to bring into your forefront. Join us today and align with us to help yourself level up and see what you can bring to the community at large. We're always looking for highly qualified individuals. This is an application-only process. So head on over today, put in your information, and let's communicate. And let's see if you are a fit for us and we are a fit for you. We look forward to welcoming you inside the community now.
Hey everybody, my name is Patrick Rude. I'm the owner of Rude Financial Services, a proud sponsor of the Meticulous Moments podcast, hosted and directed by the beautiful, strong, and intelligent Juanita Kapp. I cannot tell you enough about what this woman has done with this podcast and the effect that she has had on me and all of the other sponsors and people that listen. Don't miss it.